Hey all, here OSReviews. Today we're taking a quick look at the Yaber Pico T1. This is a mini DLP projector which is ultra slim, measuring only 0.52 inches. In fact, it's one of the world's slimmest. Now, with that being said, in order to achieve such a slim profile, one of the compromises here is they had to get rid of a built-in battery. So you have to use either the battery from your phone when you're connecting it using Type-C, or you can connect it to a power bank, and one of those comes included in the box. So there is a keystone correction functionality, magnetic tripod, which is supported, and otherwise has built-in Wi-Fi as well if you want to use wireless screen sharing. Portability is the main selling point here. It's not necessarily going to be the, say, highest resolution projector in the world. In fact, it's quite average compared to other DLP Pico units we've seen, which is to say it's capped at 480p native output, but of course you can input at a higher resolution like Full HD or 4K, but it will just output technically at 480. But still, DLP units, like we've seen time and time again, often look better than that number would make you believe. But some other accessories that you get are inclusive of a super tiny remote that has to be one of the cutest I've ever seen. It fits right in the palm of your hand, although it does take a cell-based battery, but you can use this to change the settings, volume, turn it on or off, if you don't want to use the built-in controls on the top of the projector itself. You can plug it into HDMI, but it is using a micro HDMI on the projector itself because of how slim it is, and then you can convert it into a full size to plug into a computer or gaming console. And then here is the magnetic tripod. So it has just a rubber accent at the top, and you just attach it onto the base like so, and it stays in place, even though there isn't a physical screw, which I get they're trying to go for a more sleek design, but I think it would be probably good to have both options so that if you wanted to use it with a standard tripod, at least you would have that versatility, although this is a pretty compact and again, super mini design. We've also got access to a USB Type-C power adapter, and again, you can plug this into the wall and use it, or you can attach it into a power bank. You also get a additional soft carrying pouch. Pretty thoughtful extra, actually feels quite premium here, and this can be used to bring all of those accessories with you when you're on the go, along with a quick user guide. So you can stack in here, for instance, the cables, the tiny remote along with the tripod when folded down, and it will all fit into this sleeve that is included. Pretty thoughtful. Now, more importantly though, this is also where you'll find the power bank, which is a pretty standard power bank because it will work with any power bank that you might already have. But since there is no built-in battery, that's why you need to add this if you want to make it truly portable. Power bank does come in its own little packaging, so it's almost like they picked this up off the shelves, but just included it as a bundle with the actual unit that they've made here. But this included power bank is 10,000 milliamp hours. Again, you can always use your own. Doesn't look too shabby, has a pretty clean design, and does have a small display at the top there that also shows the kind of power percentage. You can also use it to charge your phone using micro USB Type-C or Lightning for iPhones. Also has its own AC adapter, so you can even charge it by plugging it into the wall without having to plug in a standard cable, for instance. So this is a pretty fully featured power bank, really not bad. The only downside I would say is that this prong is rather sharp and doesn't fold all the way in, as you can see there. So I would have liked them to have this be a little bit more flush, but you can always just put it into the case and just be a little more careful when you are transiting with it. Alright, so taking a closer look at the design of the T1 projector itself, I have to say it's beautiful. Probably one of the most attractive looking shell designs I've seen out of a projector to date. This crazy gradient finish reminds me of a premium smartphone, in fact, with maybe a camera lens stacked into that place instead of being a touchpad. But you get the idea. Very beautiful, but the downside is it's a huge fingerprint magnet because of how glossy it is, so it will attract smudges very easily, but you can always wipe that down. Now the surface here though is constructed out of a polycarbonate plastic, so the entire thing is surprisingly lightweight in the hands. It doesn't feel necessarily hollow, but it doesn't really feel like it's a projector either. The same thing goes on the back. There's another film protector, and then this is also where the speaker comes out from. Bottom here houses the micro HDMI as well as the two USB Type-C ports, one for power located on the right side here, and then the middle one is for connecting to a device. And then on the spine you have access to a red accented power key, additional volume controls, and also a focus dial. And the lens, of course, is just located at the front there, as you can see, which is absolutely tiny. The entire thing is actually flush. It's sitting below built-in lens cover, so it's already a little bit more protected than having it just with the lens itself exposed. And we have just an IR port for receiving commands from the remote. And again, here's a closer look at some of the controls we have there, standard for going back home, back menu, and the touchpad there located at the center. So as a quick size comparison, here it is next to the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip, which is a bit of a taller phone. So this thing is even smaller and for sure lighter than that because there is no battery built on in. And it's going to be a little bit thicker, but really not by too much. Very fashionable, but again, keep in mind that you do need an external power source for it to be driven. Here's the boot up animation. Usually takes about 20 seconds to turn on, and there is a built-in Android OS, so it's not going to be quite as fast to boot as kind of a dumb projector, quote unquote, because you are able to watch things like YouTube, some TV show content without even necessarily connecting it to a phone or a computer. This also provides a demo of how bright the projector is in terms of if you have background lights around you, it's not going to be the best effect, which is pretty much the case for any projector in general, especially with Pico units, which are just so tiny. The anti-lumens on here are about 100 or so, so you ideally want to be in a darker space. Here right now we are in a pretty sunny room, and you're still able to make out some of the text and details. Granted, it's condensed right now to about a, I would say, 15-inch size, so it's not the largest screen either. The further that you stretch, of course, the lower the brightness per square inch of the picture. The colors do look pretty realistic. Of course, we'll take a closer look at the best effect once we lower the lights, but overall, again, a relatively clean UI, similar to a lot of Android TVs and smart TVs these days. So anyways, if we take a look here at the projector itself, I do want to also do a quick demo of what it sounds like next to the camera. So that's how loud the fan is. And this projector does have auto keystone as aforementioned, so as we are rotating it and tilting it across the wall, you can see that the image is trying to compensate accordingly to make it still look flat. And the entire setup, while we do have the cables connected, is no longer quite as elegant as maybe originally it would seem, but still the magnetic tripod is doing an okay job. So things that we're able to control here include accessing some of these carousel tiles of sports content, which is popular at the moment. You can also access a baked-in app store, which gives you access to some additional content that you can install specifically for this optimized Android TV-like view. So things that you can do here, such as interact with certain streaming services like Hulu, Pluto, NBC, YouTube Kids, ABC, so on and so forth. Although the built-in touchpad is pretty responsive and easy to use, you get this virtual mouse that pops up on screen. Similar to with the remote, both of these pieces are not backlit. I think that is one thing they could potentially add in the future just to make it a little easier to hit in the dark. But regardless, overall, not bad in terms of that usability. Some additional icons on the bottom here allow us to take a look at our favorite apps, which you're able to add on here and pin to the dock. Things like YouTube, the browser, for instance. You can jump into the full list of applications, which will then show up down below here. Some other popular streaming apps. If you are a subscriber, you're able to then just jump in and access. Pretty simple stuff. And additional content like local movies and content if you have it stored via thumb drive or onto the system's memory itself, which it has 8 gigabytes out of the box. Again, similar to a Android smartphone, a basic one that is. Under additional settings, you're able to control and connect to other Wi-Fi sources, connect to other Bluetooth speakers, and some of the other projection settings also allow you to change things like the keystone as well as the brightness, which by default it will be at the brightest, and that's pretty much what I would recommend leaving it at, but you can also change that if you desire. Some other modes here include flipping the screen around if you're trying to project it onto the ceiling. So overall, the system's UI is pretty responsive to navigate, at least. It feels fast enough. If we wanted to go and switch into its source, you can then be able to switch into the HDMI connection, which right now we are linked into a computer, and you can see that it's inputting at 1080p, but again outputting at 480, but still not too shabby, I'd say. And using a wired connection, you do get a relatively fast experience. Let's play back a quick video clip here just to showcase what the quality is like and also hear what the speakers sound like. Right, so some impressions here in terms of the audio quality is it's actually a little bit better than I was expecting. Considering this entire thing is so slim, there's just not a ton of space to pack in big drivers. But surprisingly, it actually has bigger sound than you would think. It doesn't sound too tinny either, even at higher volume levels. It doesn't have a ton of bass, but actually comparable to most better quality smartphone speakers. And you are able to, again, link it to Bluetooth headsets and better speakers if you want to further improve that experience. Again, colors here do look surprisingly vibrant and actually quite nice and attractive when it comes to giving you that cinematic experience for a small unit like this. But then again, this is not really designed for giving presentations or things that require a ton of tiny text details like Excels. That will still struggle a little bit more because inadvertently, if you are zooming all the way in, you can still notice some of that pixelation the further in that you go. So not really designed for office work or really an office presentation projector, but that's kind of to be expected, really meant just for maybe a little bit of reading back of larger articles and primarily for videos that you'll be watching. And then gaming might also be an okay experience if you are connected using HDMI into a Switch or a console. Also is getting a pretty nice experience, but just keep in mind it's going to be a standard 60 Hz output as opposed to something ultra fast in terms of the refresh rate. But overall, really not bad in terms of the experience. Projected onto the wall, onto the ceiling if you're tight on space in a dorm, and it can just make things feel a little more immersive. Alright, so that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the Yaber T1 Pico projector. And I have to say it is super beautiful in terms of the finish, and it's pretty polished in terms of the software and the entire experience. The package gives you a lot of goodies inside, but of course, in order to get to such a slim profile, there are some definite compromises here, including the fact that there isn't a built-in battery, you have to supply your own. It's not too problematic in itself. In fact, it almost makes it a modular component, but it does mean that you have to bring along kind of an extra part or cable to complete the package. Now, one other thing here is, again, that tiny micro remote is super cute, although, again, using a cell battery instead of a standard battery just to get the size small is another example where maybe you're losing a little bit of that standardization just to make it so compact. But overall, this is still a well-performing pocket projector, and at the end of the day, if you do want something really stylish, beautiful to carry around with you, and just as small as possible, then this is definitely worth, I think, considering at the very least, overall with slightly better performance than you might expect looking at the specs alone. You can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below, but for now that's been our video of the stylish Yaber T1